No, that's right. I want an actual image of it. That way I can kind of go back and refer to it if I need.
All right, so just give me a second here. And by the way, like last week and the week before, you can and really should be working in the background, everyone. If I'm not going over your stuff right now, it was pretty typical that in a classroom situation in room 707, that this is kind of a work day for you anyway, and you could just and should be working in the background. All right, so once again, get this water fixed, and I think that you should just redo the water and make it a bigger splash. Remember the conical element of the splash itself. And whatever that means, if there was a projectile coming in and landing in the water, this straight line in the background is killing you. So put a mountain range back there. Get rid of this straight line. You could put some far away clouds here, actually, if you thought about it, and use that technique that I had talked about of moving an object in Toon Boom. Put some fire here. And over this whole thing, you could put, well, you need lightning too. And remember that when you're doing lightning, this is like the best way to think about it is the energy goes from one source to the other, and it tries to find the path of least resistance, but it's also very erratic. And then, so that's your main core. And then do your little branches of the main core. And I think that I might have mentioned this comment saying, well, you have to think like lightning. And that's not always easy. I understand that, but straight lines, thicker lines by the core, that kind of thing. And make sure that if you're doing this, you have a couple of different varieties and that these are timed differently. So I also think that you could use some rain here. Get some rain to fall in. Right, but I think those are my notes. And remember that you've got, literally, this applies to everything that everyone ever does for film and animation and game, is that you've got main focal points. And so this is a main focal point here. So you really should have something happening here. I'm not sure what it is. It could very easily just be like a rock tumbling down into the water and causing ripples, which would be fine. Something like that. All right, got that one. All right, again, this file is for today, everybody. Files for discussion for today. All right, I see a lightning in there. So I think this is okay, Fernando. It looks pretty realistic. Lightning can do that. There are a couple of different kinds of lightning, but I think that you need the white, black, white flash that goes on in the background. And you should know how to do that, right? You got the lightning coming in, and right when it's doing this, you could replace your background with a black and then a white and then a black frame so that there's like an explosion, but the actual lightning itself looks okay. All right, you got that, Fernando?
All right.
You know how to do that, right? Well, if I actually have part of that as my discussion for today. because even though I was doing an orb, I did an explosion within the orb. All right, let me just jump back here.
Actually, I do have a question. Actually, actually looking on the lightning effect, I actually tried to create this glowing effect on it, and I kind of got stuck. How do I do that?
So there's a couple of things. If you were thinking about doing, well, I don't have my lightning brought up right here. Let me think about this, the easiest way to do this. All right, I'm going to do it just in this rough animator application. So just to answer your question, let's say that you just start out with your background, and your background you just want to be jet black, right? And so we kind of talked about this a little bit last week about the idea of jet black in a portfolio is not the best idea because it blows out your contrast. So one thing that you can do is, if you've got your lightning coming in, I'm not going to animate this, I'm just going to do like a layout. And so your lightning is coming in, and I'm not doing this randomly. I'm thinking that the lightning came in from this point, and it's going to hit another point like over here. And so it wanders around a little bit, and then it finds its path of least resistance. And you can see that there are examples of lightning doing this in videos all over the place, and it can look like that. And so strengthen up your core. And in Toon Boom, if you've got the ability to make straight lines just by rotating your screen, you can do that. You can strengthen up these lines just by drawing them in, and then you get the rest of the aesthetic working. You get the rest of the shape of whatever the lightning, the roots are for the lightning, and you get it to happen. So in your timeline down there, you just get it to happen, however many frames, eight frames. And then one thing that you can do is you can copy this. And remember that in Toon Boom, if you copy frames, if you go like on the stage here and you say, just with your main select tool, and you copy the lightning, and then you paste it in another layer right on top of it, then it will not become a symbol. And sometimes you want symbols, sometimes you don't. You don't want symbols if you want to modify things. And so I would say just copy and paste the objects right off the stage by circling and then pasting in a new area. And when you do that, I'll do that for this one. And I don't know exactly how this is going to work. But for this one, now I've just painted it. And in Toon Boom, now that you've got this, now you can blow it out. Now you can go back in here and make a node and say that you're going to put a glow on it. And you can just say, go into the library, put a glow node on it, and that should be all you need. So you're literally copying and pasting all of the drawings that you did for the lightning, each frame from one layer to another, and then taking the glow layer and putting a glow node on it in Toon Boom. The other thing that you can do is, if you have this layer right here, that you can change it by changing the color and going in, and in Toon Boom, you can just very easily say, copy and paste in the timeline. Over here, you would have lightning 1 and then lightning 2, and then you can literally go paint, repaint, and paint the glow layer another color, right? And once you do that, you can manipulate your color all by itself. So there's that option. You can manipulate it here by just saying you're going to give it an alpha or whatever different color, and that changes it for every presentation on in the screen. The other thing that you can do is, because this is new and unique to itself, is that you can do something kind of crazy and put like a little glow around it. And so you can say this lightning has an actual outline, and you can, and there's all kinds of variations here. And you can go in and you can draw an outline on every single frame and then paint it so that it's like a hot center, and then put a glow on it. And so there's all kinds of different ways of treating this aesthetic. So does that answer your question, Fernando? Fernando?
I think so, yeah.
There's all kinds of different ways. So now that we were looking at that one particular file down there, so this is what I was working on just over the week. So remember what I was doing was I wanted to show the plasma blast, and then at one point so what I was thinking is that from one electrode to the other, the plasma, there would be like a exchange of energy. There would be a plasma blast here. We used an example from Pinterest that had like some particles that were coming in and causing this whole disturbance. There was an explosion. It sent out its energy to this orb, and I remember that I put it there just for interest's sake. And then this had a whole bunch of blasts on it, like electric or energy blast. And even though I drew this little smoke thing here last night, or this little arc that looks like smoke, what I had intended was that what happens is that these particles come into this orb, it sends the electricity to this orb, and the plasma creates a moving orb, and that the orb then moves on this as a track. And this is new because I think that I did the orb as a separate project where we were just looking at the pulsing, and we were talking about the little sprites coming off the center of the orb, and it's spinning and moving. So this is the thing that creates the orb, and then the orb starts moving. I haven't done this part yet. What this looks like is just this. And there was a new thing that I was trying here last night, and that is that when so this happens here, the little sprites come in, and then as soon as the sprites are done, I have, because the background is completely black, as soon as the background, as soon as the sprites happen, instead of going to a black frame, I go to a gray frame, because then it's different from the background itself. And then I go to a white frame where it just obliterates everything. Then I go to a gray frame again, and then another white frame as the actual explosion happens. So instead of white, black, white, this was gray, white, gray. And so see if you can see that when you're looking at this. But so that's just kind of, and I'll explain other things about that today. Oops. All right, so new here. All right, yeah, we already talked about that one. This flag goes all the way to the end of the semester. Remember that. And I'm keeping track of it here on my paper. So Shane, is this one new?
Yes,
This one's new?
so the second one is new.
Yeah, okay, this looks really great. Yeah, I think the only thing that's catching my eye is that the upper left corner is kind of just hanging up in space just a little too much. I think if you can manage it, try to get the tip of that flag to flip over.
Okay,
I mean, it's fine if this was placed in a background, either in a short animated film or a game somewhere, no one would have any issue with it. But for me, I think that it's just kind of, if you look at me in the monitor, like, right, here's the tip of your flag. It kind of looks like the flag is just doing this. It's just kind of pulsing upwards, where you should try to get the flag to flip over on itself. Other than that, it looks really good.
okay.
And I have a note here that you did it twice.
Okay,
All right, then Gabby has a flag for today. Okay. Okay, this looks really good. I have a suggestion for you. I realize that I'm putting flags in two different places here, so let me make sure that. And it's strange because in my grade book, I'm writing F, which would suck if that was your grade, but F means flag. So I had to put a green line down there so that I remembered that it was not a grade, it was F means flag. All right, so my suggestion, I think the animation itself looks really good.
Okay.
This is a Toon Boom project.
Mhm.
All right, so my aesthetic would be, my suggestion on the aesthetic would be is that the darker green that you've got is showing up as a shadow.
Okay.
And so I think that when this part of the flag, I think you should just use the darker green as a shadow.
Okay.
Let me stop it on a frame like this.
Mhm.
Like this particular frame is a really good one to just talk about. I think that you have to, what you have right here is that you have like a lighter source on your dome right
Mhm.
here. So that suggests that there's a light source coming from this
Mhm.
area. And if you're going to do that, then this would be incorrect. And
Okay.
if anything, if your light source is here, then you would want maybe just a single band of darker green right here.
Okay.
And then this would be all in this color here,
Mhm.
and this as well. So remember that what you're doing is you're replacing the idea of the crease. The crease would either go that way or it would go this way. And so you're replacing the idea of a crease with just a band of shadow. And
Okay.
I think you just got too many parts, drawings, positions of the flag
Mhm.
where there's too much in shadow. So like
Okay.
this one, I think that you should just recolor it so that, and just, how many frames do you have in your whole cycle?
I think I have 72.
72 is, and you have an animated 72. It's probably like 18, and then you copy and pasted it.
Yeah, I looped it.
So yeah, so you probably only have 18 frames that you need to adjust.
Okay.
And hopefully if you did it correctly and you copy and pasted the frames correctly, that it'll fix itself as you fix it.
Mhm.
So this is a suggestion as well. If you've got this crease right here, put like a little curl right here.
Okay.
And then this should be the darker green.
Okay.
This should be the darker green. You know, even to the point where if you were going to do photorealistic, there would be the shadow would continue here. But
Mhm.
then this, the light source is coming from here, then you're not going to see a shadow on the flag until maybe like this,
Okay.
something like that. And then this would be the lighter green.
Okay.
Other than that, the motion of the flag looks really good and the shadow behind everything looks good. It's just that it looks like what's happening is that you look like the flag is morphing its colors. Like it's
Okay.
changing from a darker green to a teal. And that's not the most horrible thing I've ever seen. It's just a little weird.
Yeah.
And for me, I like the weird. I like things that are weird, but for this, I think that because it's just a
Yeah.
traditional animation study, just fix the color.
Okay. Thank
Fix
you.
the color. Fix the color. All right. All right, that's all that I have right here. Nobody. Oh, there is stuff in here. Okay. All right, so Gabby, this should be a final, right? This volcano?
Hmm. I
Okay.
fixed the rain and then I did the water like you asked.
Okay. All right, so now now I have another suggestion for you.
Yes.
There's always a suggestion, right?
Hmm.
All right, so I think that the stuff that you've got going in the lava here is awesome. Okay. It's crazy, it's beautiful. Yeah, everything is working except I just really don't like how you copy and pasted
Okay.
the rain. And so this is just a really quick fix. I think that what you can do is let me stop the loop here. I think that it looks just a little too mechanical to
Okay.
have all of these little areas right here. The blank, the removed distance, I can't think of the erased, it looks like you took a line and just erased it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that what you should do is make more of those.
Okay.
And so that it looks more random. And so I'm going to try to do that. This color's not working. Let's try that one. I'm going to do this one. So yeah, I think that the idea would just to try to make these, because what you're actually seeing here is the rain that's moving really fast.
Hmm.
Is blurred. You know,
Yeah.
each one of these raindrops is moving so fast that it's just blurred. So, and I think that because you've got this distance,
Hmm.
this little piece that you erased here, that's why it's looking mechanical, is you've got that same
Okay.
distance everywhere, that same little measurement everywhere.
Hmm.
And that's not the absolute best aesthetic. So
Okay.
put more of a variety there. I also think that you could use like a little bit of rain where it's not in the same line.
Okay.
So make that more random. And then I also think that, is it tucked behind this bit of
Like
cloud?
the cloud? Yes.
It's behind this one. Okay.
Hmm. But like the clouds are like opaque. That's why you can see it through it.
Right. Okay. So that's fine. So what I would suggest is putting a node on this rain
Hmm.
so that you put a transparency node
Okay.
and then play with that transparency node. Because I think that it's just too bright. If this rain is actually behind this volcano, behind this volcano, behind all of these rocks, and then
Mhm.
behind this series of clouds here, you
Yeah.
really wouldn't be able to see that much of it.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be, yeah, just break up the mechanical nature of the rain itself.
Okay.
I also think that you could figure out graphically how to get it to move. I don't know. I think it's moving at a decent speed because it's far away. Just break up those little mechanical lines, put more in between there, and put a note on it so that it's just a little bit more transparent.
Okay.
And I'm
Is
sorry.
the way the rain's moving, is that better? Because I know
Yeah,
like
that's
for a couple
okay.
weeks that was my issue.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the other versions you had were just kind of weird.
Yeah, I figured out what I was doing wrong and I was able to fix it.
Well, and I think that what happens is that you are doing something that, where's my other note? Oh, here it is. What you're doing is realizing that it is a pain in the ass to redo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do redo stuff, which is a really hard thing to say, that you end up teaching yourself every way in the world to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a good thing. When I was learning animation, I think I must have done a walk cycle wrong 25 times in a row. And I can do a walk cycle in my sleep right now. It's like, it's just a really great way. I like this little tiny green leaf you've got here.
Thank you.
And for whatever it was worth, I was trying to figure out the Pete Docter and Andrew Stanton were trying to make the comment that they had called Wall-E as a movie in respect to Walt Disney, Walter Elias Disney, Wall-E.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, but the message of that film was that the people have screwed up the planet so badly, and they've made themselves, they've taken themselves out of the picture so badly and put themselves in these fat chairs. I'm like, are you really sure you wanted to use that as an homage to Disney? That's kind of weird, don't you think?
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, this looks like, oh, it's a movie now. Oh, it was a movie last week. Okay. All right, so remind me, he's going to shake this thing?
Yeah.
And stuff is going to explode?
Yeah, this week I focused on getting the like rain and the little droplets on the window, as well as the fire and the boiling of the beaker.
Yeah, I think that
and lightning.
I think it's okay. I think that you're quickly discovering that your camera's a little bit too far away to really put like an amazing amount of detail in at any particular place. So I remember when we talked about this last week, did we talk, this was not going to be a traditional explosion, right?
Yeah, no, it was going to be either like a weird sci-fi orb kind of plasma explosion, or
yes.
it was just going to be like he shakes it, there's a pause, do the classic explosion thing with like a puff of smoke behind it. I had those kind of options.
Okay. So one thing that you may want to think about here is that this is cycling and this is cycling. So you can just let those go for, and I think it's working, right? You fix the wave here. So remember last week that I talked about trying to get this part to move?
Mm-hmm.
And just a little bit, and just use a trace back. It doesn't have to move around a lot, but just use a trace back. I also think that you might want to go in here and get some sharper points on this fire. Because right now the tips of the fire are kind of rounded.
Okay.
So get some sharper tips right there. I also think that you can put in some sort of steamy smoke
Yeah, I was gonna work on that this week.
And this is the easiest way to do that, is you just draw one, and then you draw another. And then that gives, and then you can paint those. This is just the easiest way to do it. Then you just animate the nodes. And you already know how to do that, right? It's just, that's the easiest thing to do. And the harder, another way to do it would be is that you draw something like this, and you do the same kind of approach a little bit, but then you go back in here and then it just dissipates. It goes to nothing. And so even this might be a little big right here, so that you can, yeah, my eraser doesn't work. So you do that, and then you get, oops. So you get the little steam to come up, and your hand was remembering that it was going to do this, but instead of like this node animating upwards, now it just becomes more like a little ribbon, and then it just breaks apart into just little puffs of smoke. So this would probably be preferable. When you're doing this orb here, I think that in your layout, I think that you should kind of think what happens. You've got kind of an area here, and even a spiral might work, where you can kind of animate a spiral going counterclockwise, and then maybe another spiral animating counterclockwise, which emanates a bunch of energy coming from it. And there's a flash all by itself. So now this is kind of an unusual thing here. 2, 3, 4. So this is 7 sprockets, which is more interesting than 3 or 4 or 6, or even 5, because 7 is not a natural occurrence of radiating lines from center. But once you do this, I think that you have a whole bunch of stuff to work with, that this 7 can work with the orb. That, like, and remember from our little orb study, is that it starts and it does whatever it's doing. It's got its 7 little sprockets, and then it can travel in front of him and then off the screen, or off the screen upwards or something. If you really wanted to challenge yourself, and you got the orb to just, think about it like a little sound effect in your mind. And as it does that, it might take an anticipation to the left and then travel on this kind of pathway. And if you wanted to challenge yourself that it goes off right this way, that it could interrupt this smoke right here, this little steam. And instead of that steam cycling and cycling and cycling, when the orb goes off the screen, it pulls the smoke with it. It pulls all these little bits with it, and they disappear just like they were almost like a pixie dust or smoke that's just getting blown away to the right. And that might be really fun. Consider doing that. It's not hard. I wouldn't do anything except draw 1 or 2 keys and then animate the rest of it straight ahead. All right, you got that one?
Yeah. Really quick.
Yeah.
I did the lightning, the little flash. Does that look okay?
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it didn't
Okay.
catch my eye. That's simple. It's just a replacement of the black and white. Remember that what I had suggested though was that when you, instead of just this black, oh no, you did it there. You did it. So you've got it on your character. Yeah, I think that's fine. So when you paint the rest of the background, remember that this is your area that is flashing. And so what's going to read is that you're going to want like a highlight and a shadow in this area. So you've got him right here, he's flashing. And so you're going to have to change out just the highlight and shadow for the books And then just a couple of the things on this counter, if you haven't done it already.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just like this area and the book area. Yeah,
Got
and
it.
so that's reading. You sure you don't want to do like an animated Mickey Mouse on this little screen right here?
You know, I think out of everything, I'm good. I think I have enough that
You sure you want Donald Duck sitting right here and then he explodes?
you know, how about you do it for me
And
and
then you
then
can-
we'll say that I did it.
And then you can copy and paste it. Okay.
Easy,
All right.
dude.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Charlie.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, sorry. For some reason, this isn't playing. Let me refresh my screen. There we go. Okay, Matt, this looks really good. Are you happy with it? What are you thinking about doing to it?
I'm pretty happy with it. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, so I think that if you go back to our first days in just Toon Boom and our introduction to it, my suggestion was always try to use as many separate colors for things as possible so that you can always change things really fast on the fly. Because I think everything is just it's just two colors, it's white and blue. I think that you could use some other colors in there. I think the pulsing is fine, but you could definitely use some other colors. And if you've only used two colors, it might be just a little difficult to repaint anything. But there are a couple other things that might kind of kick this up a bit.
Okay, I'm listening.
And yeah, I'm getting my tool set here. So you've got a lot of energy coming from this location, this little, and it's going to the right. I think that's all working. But I think that what you might want to do is play around with this area right here and do a couple of little spokes, a little sparks that just come out and go away, right? And I think that you could even play that so that the sparks that come out are actually in this area too. And that would just be a separate layer. Because just kind of look at the aesthetic of it. You've got a really hot core, but I think that you could utilize this area and even backwards too. You could have like a little backward spray. Let me do that in a different color. So it's almost like you could get like a couple of really sharp electrical blasts or plasma that are just coming backwards. I think that might be kind of cool. And those don't have to be, you could do this, you could make them straight, but you could also actually do a little bit of plasma in there where you take it's like an electrical ripple. So once this thing first, and so this does not cycle, right? This just happens when the blast happens. And so these things come out, and then you've got like a little electrical ripple that goes off the screen. And I am dotting it here just because it doesn't have to be a full line. Did you ever see Mythbusters?
Yeah, I've seen. You mean
Did you ever-
Ghostbusters?
Yeah, I know those guys because I worked at Colossal Pictures. I worked with them, and my kids went to school with Adam's children. So remember the episode where they blew up the dump truck, or they blew up I think they put something inside of a cement truck, and I think they blew up like 3 or 4 tons of ammonium nitrate that was inside a cement truck. And because of that, they had to get like special clearance from the federal government, even though they were doing it in like this wasteland out in the desert in California here. And they were like a mile away when they blew it up. And remember the shock wave? That's kind of what this is. It's kind of like it's a pulsing shock wave. Try something like that. I think that the other thing that's just kind of catching your eye is that you might want to try to add in some other colors just for aesthetic purposes. And I don't think you need to fix anything. I think you could just add this. And something like this might complement what you've got. This kind of like natural flower, exotic flower kind of shape. And I think that as long as you're doing that, you can kind of get them to move out. So all the stuff in the center could be like a little darker blue. And I think you just add this. You don't have to paint anything. Just add these guys going out. And then just think of the colors that you've got working. You've got blue and white. And so your complement would be yellow, but that might be weird. So try purple. And you might, so this is just a highlight. This is just like an accent color that might work in there just to dress it up. The other thing is, let me go off of, so you got that? Did you want to do a screen grab of that?
I'm with you so far.
Okay, so the other thing that's just a suggestion would be is that so right here, right when this happens, I think that you for one thing, well, we'll talk about this a little bit today. When I was doing the demo last week of these particles coming in towards the center, spend some more time doing this. You'll see that in my demo here in just a little bit that I have a whole bunch of time, like 48 frames of just these particles coming together to create this explosion. So what you've got is actually working, but I think that this little radiating oval right here, I think you might want to just drop that to like a couple to 2s. Other than that, it's working. The only other thing that's catching my eye is that you're right-handed, and there's a visual bend. It's looking like it's just bending to the right a little bit right here. And my suggestion would be is to try to make this as straight as possible. So it's a mechanical thing about just figuring out where your projection is from here. And I don't think that Zoom allows me to draw a straight line, so I'm just going to try really hard. Yeah, I screwed it up right there. So this is supposed to be a straight line. Sorry about that.
Well, if anything, you're illustrating.
You can do a straight line.
Yeah, I failed my art class.
Well, if anything, you're showing it's not so easy to draw a straight line
That's
to the
right.
right. And I didn't really want to use like the ruler tool or
Right.
whatever
No, yeah, I
to cheat
understand.
it. So
So,
it just came out the way it did.
Just figure out where mechanically where the center of this is here, and make sure that, because right now you've got a pronounced arc like this, and then another arc here, and another arc here. And I think that this should be backwards or straighter, at least straighter. So try to get rid of this kind of look right here, where it's got a right-handed look to it. I'm gonna just play it for you. See what I mean? It's got just that little a curve right there at the end where it's plasma, it's energy. It really should be kind of straight.
I see it, yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, it's looking pretty good. All right, thank you, Mr. Mark. All right, we have a couple other ones to look at right here, and then I'll do my demo. So I'm gonna just leave my screen right here. Let's take a 20-minute break. I will see you all back here right at 10:40. 10:40, take a break.
I just want to say you called Matt Mark again.
I am sorry. Because I'm blind and I see MA. Sorry, Matt. Please forgive. All right, continuing. Alex, I'm looking at Alex's flag. I'm also making a note that you did the flag. Okay. All right, Alex. My eyes are seeing a delay. I think that what you might have done was render more frames than you actually needed. There's a delay at the end. I think the animation is actually working okay. Alex, are you live? Alex?
Yeah, I'm right here.
So do you have this project open?
Yes.
Could you render another version that just has the proper loop in it and repost it like in 2 minutes, just like immediately? So I can, because I think it's working. I just want to make sure that I give you the proper feedback on it. Let me know when you uploaded it. Actually, let me know when you uploaded it. Let me go down to Mark's, which, Charlie, you're right. I should call Matt now, right?
It's only fair.
Sorry about that. Mark and Matt, I apologize. I will allow you to drive over to my apartment and bludgeon me with a heavy object.
Where do you live?
A bowling pin would be fine. All right. This is your volcano.
You in my
Sure.
progress report, you mentioned to make the splash more prominent. So
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't mind that it's tucked in behind the smoke. But I think that you just need a better aesthetic in lots of different places. I know that I've mentioned this to you at least once before, maybe twice before. And remembering too that the main emphasis of that discussion is that drawing is becoming a very prevalent part of games, where before it didn't used to be. You didn't have to, if you were working in Flash as a game artist, You didn't need to be able to draw. Flash is a horrible drawing tool, which is now Animate. But it's the thing that separates, can't we do this? It's the thing that separates you from all the other applicants, is just to be able to draw. So I think that if you want to get the smoke to go up here, I think you've got too many undulations here. And you've got enough time. We've got 2 more weeks really to work on this. And I know that you're probably sick of this, but I'm just going to give you the proper critique. If this is your little place that the smoke comes out of, do an outside curve and then do a smaller one. And then look at the distance that you've got to go. So do a medium size outside curve and then maybe a smaller one. And then give yourself a bigger one. Maybe even like a compound curve before you do a smaller one and a medium sized one. What?
Compound curve?
Yeah, this is a simple curve.
Uh-huh.
A compound curve is 2 directions.
Okay.
Like if an animator is learning how to draw a character can have a line of action that is just a simple curve. And a character that is just standing there might have a simple curve. This character has their hands in their pockets and they're looking at something on the ground, right? But if a character is in a neutral pose, that character can also have a really nice compound curve where they might be walking. So the simple curve, compound curve.
Okay.
So, and I think that you should try that. And then a smaller, and then try another compound curve, but you want outside and inside. So go inside and then outside, and then complement it on the other side. And again, you don't have to like do like sausages or anything, but if this is a compound curve and you go outside first, go inside, then outside, medium, small, and then go inside and outside compound curve, something like that, just to give this a better aesthetic. I think that it's somewhat inconceivable that this pool of lava inside this cave is perfectly oval. I think that you might want to try to break this up a little bit and just use a better shape. It's just a one-time thing for your background.
Uh-huh.
Try giving it more of a organic shape. I know that it's not all of it is reading because contrast. And try to maybe encompass these guys here. So this is all lava. So just let that be all lava. For your water, I think that you've got to go back and look at the shape of the water. Because right now, I think it doesn't look like water. So just give yourself a traditional animator's water splash here. I know your game, but still, this is the thing that is the aesthetic, the money. Make this look like a water splash. I think it's moving like water, and you got that going for you. And I don't mind it being behind the smoke for sure, but go back and look at the tutorial for how doing the proper design and shape on the water. Again, I'm just going to mention this one more time, that your stalagmites,
Yeah.
I think that you just need to get in there and do the proper variation, the proper, look at them. What is going on a cave ceiling? Right now, you've just kind of got, I don't know what they are. Make this one smaller, maybe more pointed.
Well,
This one a little longer. I think making them more pointed is going to help. I also think that you may not want to do them all in one line. I think I mentioned this before as well. That
yeah.
get one that is in the foreground. And then overlap these lines. just, use the proper rules of art, and the ones in the background can just come off of that line. And even your lines in the cave wall are suspect. As long as this is in the foreground, your rules of atmospheric perspective say that there should be as much detail on this little spire as possible. And so whatever that means, maybe there's like little ridges in it. Oh,
Okay.
that's weird. All right, so maybe there's ridges in it. And maybe little highlights and shadows within the ridge themselves. See, and this one too, this is in the foreground, so use that same aesthetic here, but with a different color. So this has still got the oval top on it, but there's just nothing happening here. But the thing is that you do have an area here, so there could be. In order to really make this done well, you put in those ridges, and just kind of think like calcite, that over thousands and thousands of years, water has been dripping out of there, and causing this thing to actually form. That's what's going on. But it might be kind of cool. So this is the main smoke right here. And then here it might be just really fun to do just one of those little dissipation smokes. And just use that same kind of aesthetic that I was mentioning before about this is steam. This is smoke, right? This is smoke. This is
Yes.
steam. Sorry.
Was there a specific Steam tutorial, or is that just smoke?
No, it's the
but-
same thing. It's the
Yeah.
same thing as this. You just animate nodes. So this is a node going into this node, going into this one, going into this position here. And remember that I use the word node because that's what effects animators do. And we say this outside curve is going to animate from this position into this position in 8 frames. And you do that everywhere. So you put 8 drawings between each one of these positions. 8, 8, 8, 8. And you can pick your numerology. You can pick it's either 8 or 10 or 12, whatever. The more you have, the finer, more refined the motion is going to be. It's okay to start with 8. And you do 8 on 2s, which is a total of 16 frames. And that might be way too fast. So you do 8 on 4s, which is 32 frames, which is a second and a quarter, which might be still too fast. And so you do 8 on 8 on 8s, which is 64 frames, which is well over 2 seconds, right? And so that might get you where you want to be. So you do 8 on 8s. And then you can go back and say, boy, it's working. 8 frames is kind of the limit for how much you want to hold things that are moving. I would prefer it if you did in-betweens and went back and did the smoke in-betweens on 4s. And the really simple way to look at that is that if you've got this node right here going into this node, that let's say that you were doing a halfway node. And so this node is going to go to this position right here. And so you just draw this shape right here. And then you're going to have to figure out where it came from. And then this shape is going to go here. And so you just do this. And then this shape has 1, 2, 3 little nodes. So you got 1, 2, 3 little nodes before it catches up to itself. And actually, I did this backwards. This is outside and then inside curve. And so that is like, that pretend that your drawings were on 1, and then the next drawing was 8, or this last drawing for 8, the next drawing is 9. So you'd have to do a drawing number 5. And in order to do drawing number 5, then you go back in, and then you go from this node right here to this node, and you do the same exact thing that I just did. You in between this one, and then you in between this one. So you start here, and then you in between it, and then you go and you in between. So now it's on 4s. So that's how you plan this out. You just take one drawing and you factor in your nodes. And I didn't do this randomly. Each one of those outside curves, remember that the direction of the smoke is like this. And so what I mean by an outside curve is that from this center line, this is an outside curve. It's outside this main curve. This is an inside curve because it's pointing towards the inside of that arc. So that's the best way to plan this, is just to draw the first one out. Figure if you want 8 drawings, it's probably best to start with 8. And then the timing factor is that you've got 8 drawings on 8, which is 64 frames, which is well over, let's see, 36, 48. It's like, this is 3 seconds, so that's good. And then you might have to go back and do it on 4s and do in-betweens in there. So I think that'll help. I think that all of these little copy and pastes right here, my eye is not sure if they are, if it's fire or bubbles. What did you intend them to be?
Fire.
So I think that what you need to do is make them look like fire, because right now they're looking like bubbles. And in order to make them look like fire, just go back and do a little bit of visual research. What does the fire look like? I'm going to erase that one. What does the fire look like? And so something's burning. You've got that little inside and outside. You need sharp points. When fire burns, there's usually sharp points. So that's just a really simple version of the fire right there. And then also you got the little parts of the fire that break away from itself. And then it really starts to look like fire. And the main tutorial for fire was that it's the main movement starts out fast and then it slows down a little bit. Remember that we were talking about a couple of different things, that the fire can actually be really stylized. It doesn't need to look like the traditional round shapes. It can be like this strange geometric rectilinear kind of shape, as long as it moves like fire. I think that these are so rounded that they're looking like bubbles. And so that's a bigger issue than just getting the fire to look like fire. So that would be my suggestion, is to do that kind of adjustment. And you do have time to do that. All right, did you want to take a screen grab of that?
So, yeah, okay. I have taken the screen grab.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we went over this last week.
Yeah, I was working on some of the volcano, and so I just changed the smoke.
Okay.
Just trying to.
All right, so remember that my suggestion was to do one counterclockwise and one clockwise,
Yeah.
but also to do them with different colors so that you can read them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So use purple and then use an adjacent color, purple and red. Use analogous colors.
Okay.
I also think that just aesthetically, you've got an issue happening where if even though it's a magic cloud, that you should play on the idea of it being magic, and that I'm going to do, yeah, I'll do it right on top of this. So I'm going to do it smaller. So basically what you've got is you've got this like kind of a gummy bear shape, for lack of a better word to pick.
Uh-huh.
Right, you've got this like, and I think that what you need to do is pick a shape that's more magical, more interesting to look at. And so I'm going to do it in black over on the right side here. So you've got this basic shape. So play with that basic shape, because that's kind of what you need. Here's the best way to think about it. You go in and you kind of draw a shape of where you want your cloud to be, because you have all these things that are going to be inside it. And then you go and you say, well, I've got an outside curve, bigger, medium, smaller. You don't want to make too much detail here, but you do want to make it interesting. And you don't want it to be repetitive. You want to make it something that's kind of cool to look at. And when you're doing this, you're thinking magic cloud. And so that looks better than this, right?
Uh-huh.
And once again, I did this with intent, because if you're going to animate nodes, and then let's say that this part of the cloud is moving clockwise, this one is kind of funky here, because if you animate from this node to this node, it's a bigger distance than this one. So I would say that this one is going to go here and it's going to become 2. So this little plume of cloud of smoke, whatever, animates into this position, and it goes from 1 to 2, and then it goes back to 1. And then from here, it goes to there. And so you've got this, and the same exact thing with your smoke that's going up. Now your smoke is just going around in a circle. And in each one of these, you put in there a plan for age drawings in between each one of these. And then you get that to work. And you paint that, and you put a transparency node on it that's purple. And then you do another one that's the opposite on a separate layer. And the easiest way to do this would probably be is to make this transparent, just so that you can see it a little bit. And the same idea with the pixie dust. Remember on day 1, we talked about making sure that there's no 2 little dots of pixie dust in the same place, because then the apparent motion will die. It'll stop moving. So you want to know where this is before you do the other one. And so you just do it halfway. So much you do like this, and you do a little one, and then you do a bigger one, and you do a little one, and then you go like this. You do another little one, and you go like this. And for whatever it's worth, when I'm done with this, you can screen grab this and use what I'm doing for you, because that's fine. I don't really care. It's like, this is your project. All right, so there's your other one. And now you do the exact same thing where you count your nodes. So on the black one, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little outside plumes of smoke. On this one, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's a natural rhythm, mathematical rhythm of 7. And this one's moving counterclockwise. And so you do the same thing. You just animate this node, this exterior, this tangential node going counterclockwise to this position. So instead of the smoke going up, right, the smoke is going around and around. So that gives you a better aesthetic. And then when you got this working, and you got the black one and the red one working, then you can put a transparency node on it. Then you can put a blur node on it. You can do all kinds of fun things there in Toon Boom to play around with this. My suggestion is, because it's a magic cloud, that once you've got this working, go in there on everything and do a bunch of floating pixie dust. That's actually, let me, now that I drew that, I'm gonna do it just a little differently. Sorry, I erased that.
That's fine.
Oh, shoot. Hopefully I got that in close to the right place. All right, so what I was suggesting was that you do like a bunch of pixie dust that's right near the edge of the cloud. the little floating cloud. And so instead of the pixie dust falling like it was in our pixie dust project, remember that the pixie dust was falling?
Yeah,
This pixie dust is just hovering. And so you just draw a bunch of dots and little tiny circles and bigger dots. And then once in a while you do a little exploding star. Right?
Yeah.
And that's just around the edge. And it'll help make it look like magic. You might even want to play with the idea of some of this magic happening outside, just a little bit outside the cloud itself. All right, and then a suggestion here is to make this look like water. Even though it's just a cauldron, still go in and think about how it looks as water. It's your main water splash. And you can see that for everyone, when I did your progress 2 grades, I actually went back and spent some time looking to make sure that you all had the water and where it was. As long as you're going to include it here, make this like a traditional 2D animation water splash. And here I've just broken up the cone into 4 distinct little places, doing that main key for you. And then you can put in the droplets, the little water droplets. You can put in like medium-sized friends, and that'll help make it look like water as these traditional water droplets, but make this look more like water. Or
okay,
you want to screen grab that too?
yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, let me refresh this. All right, you has,
Yes,
how are you?
good, thank you.
All right, give me an explanation of what I'm looking at.
Also, just in the process of create all the stuff. So I want to create that you can see here in the middle, the ball hit it from the alien spaceship. Then I'm not sure if it's too short in that moment. I feel like it's too short to the timing here. The ball get hit.
I don't think I'm picking up on everything that you're saying, but so let me just do. Let me do a couple of things.
Okay.
All right, so even though your game, right,
Mm-hmm.
you have a little narrative happening here. And because you've got a narrative, I don't think this should loop. So just do like a short film. So I'm just going to write loop is off. You can loop it if you want, but just for in terms of the animation, just make it look like a scene.
Okay.
And a scene in film, it depends on where you're coming from, but a scene in traditional film is defined as a negotiation between all the players on the stage. And for you, I think that what you can interpret is that you're actually telling a little mini story, which is fine. Stories are good. So what happens first? The first thing that happens is that you have this background and it's just sitting there and the background is idle. The background is idle. There's not a lot of stuff happening. Then the spaceship comes in, right? I'm going to write SS for spaceship. and I'm going to put enter. The spaceship comes in, and then it blasts the orb, right? And then the orb changes. I think that what you need to think about is that the orb changes. If it's going to take a blast from the spaceship, it's going to need to change both its size, its shape, its color, and possibly even its motion, how it moves. So my suggestion would be is that if the orb, whatever it is, if the thing that comes in here is moving slow, then once it gets energized by the spaceship,
Mhm.
then make it move faster. So go from slow to fast. That's what S and F mean. All right, so once that happens, once this orb becomes energized, right? And you could write energize. Then it's going to wreak havoc on the rest of the environment. Now you have this bomb here.
Mhm.
And you haven't done anything with the bomb yet,
Mhm.
but you have a campfire, and then you have a splash. And this is magic that's happening here. So just a couple of suggestions. I'm not quite sure about this bomb.
Mhm.
It kind of seems like it's out of place a little bit. So I'm just going to write a big question mark right there.
Yeah, the bomb it's if the herb falling down in the fire, and then it comes a little bit like a debris, and then jump to the bomb, and then the bomb will be explode.
Does the bomb come from the fire?
The debris from the fire. You know, if the herb falling down in the fire, and then it explodes couple of like a small fire.
So the orb goes into the fire, and then the bomb comes out of it?
And not bomb, it's like the small stone or like this, and then will be how can I say the bomb will be explode after then.
Okay. So I think that in order to make this a little bit more interesting, I'm just going to give you some suggestions,
Mhm.
and you can take them for whatever they are worth. First of all, I think that I think it would be best to bring your spaceship into the screen a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's just too far tucked up there.
Okay.
So give your spaceship, and I think that you can certainly have the little feet on the spaceship. But what might work better for you is if this thing comes in and there's like a little gun up here.
Okay.
That the blast comes out of. At that point, I think that you, and we'll go over this tutorial in just a second, that you use the plasma, you use the directional blast,
Mhm.
you use the undulating wave. This thing here has the blast. And you can use pretty much straight ahead from my tutorial I started last week, and that I'll continue today. There's little particles everywhere. There's even a radio blast that comes from it, that kind of thing. So in your narrative, I think if the background is idle and the spaceship enters, it can just come either straight down, or it can come in
Mhm.
off the screen. And once it blasts, I think that you should have it leave the screen. So it does its little damage right here, and there's a great big transfer of energy that happens right here, right?
Mhm.
And once again, just going right along with your narrative that everything is happening idle. I don't think that you should have anything happening. Just nothing is happening. In order to go backwards just a little bit, dress up your background. Think about where you are here. If this is an exterior and you've got little mountain ridges that are in the midground, and then you've got a little bit more clear definition of what the environment looks like as it's a little bit closer to camera. Follow your rules of perspective. And so if you've got a single vanishing point in the middle, it's always best to give yourself that perspective grid.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry my lines aren't straight, but it helps if you just kind of think about your environment. And if these are part of the environment is part of it, then let those lines go up, and then those have a grid on them as well. If this part goes up, then those have a perspective grid on them as well. You can certainly have a perspective in the sky, but I don't think you need it at this point, only to the extent that you may want a cloud up in the sky moving or something like that. Once you've established that, I think that you need to pay attention to this water. And that your water is going to be best if you kind of think about it, again, just in perspective. And even though it's close to what you've got, this has more of a perspective feeling to it. And I think that then you get the transition between the dirt and the water itself. And so draw a little area where there's transition and then dress it up. And so there's some sand or some rocks or some little weeds or something. So do that. You can even have mountains in the faraway background and clouds that are further away, that kind of deal. Right, then in terms of their narrative, we've already got the blast. The spaceship comes in, it blasts this little orb. And I think that what you may want to do is just have this orb be simple. So it comes in. I'm trying to see what so don't have it go all the way out of the screen. Have it stay in the screen just a little bit. It's moving at a regular kind of rate. And it's about right here when the orb. So in your timeline, you have nothing, right? You have probably 32 frames of nothing happening at all, nothing happening. This is called a handle in animation, where there's just nothing happening. And you might find that this is a little slow, so you might want 16 frames of nothing. And I use those two numbers because in animation, 8 frames equals a beat. And in animation, there are 3 beats per second. It's a traditional animation thing. So right about here, that's where your spaceship comes in, right? And then the orb continues to come up. And it's right here where the spaceship blasts it. And then the orb changes. At that point, the orb becomes whatever you want it to be. And so you can think about the aesthetic of that orb. It's bigger. It's got the little pulsing radial lines coming from the center. This one just happens to be 8. That's fine. And then there's little pixie dust that's around it. Remember that these things can pulse in and outwards. Don't make it too elaborate. because it's at that point where this orb now is like sentient. It's alive. It takes this anticipation. It lands on this bundle of sticks, causes the fire, and then wheels out of control and crashes into the water. And so that's all that's happening here with this new orb. Once this has happened, I think that it's fine if you want the orb to set off something that lands over here. But I think it might be more interesting if it was just a box. Just make it like a simple little box. You don't have to make it a bomb. And this can explode. You can do the explosion if you want.
That's
but you-
what I am thinking. It's come something out of the fire and then explode. How can I say? Make the box explosion or make the bomb explosion.
Okay. All right, and then make sure you do your traditional water, right?
Mhm.
Use that cone, right?
Yeah.
Just like we did. And I think that at this point, the more of a traditional water splash that this is, the better it'll be for you. You know, and I'm trying to draw this three-dimensionally. It's just a traditional water splash. Good, right?
Mhm.
If the water splash happens and you've got these little fish that come out, so
Mhm.
you've got this little fish that's right there.
Yeah.
It might be really fun to introduce the idea of the fish, they come out of the water and they stop, and just do two of them.
Yeah.
Pick a color, a pink one. So, and then maybe they turn to pixie dust. Instead of exploding or landing, they just turn to pixie dust. You know, consider that. It might be kind of a strange, fun thing to happen. So they get kicked out of the water and then they explode as pixie dust. Might be just kind of a fun thing to happen.
Mhm.
And then you can do something more interesting with this explosion. Think about it, and then we can talk about it next week,
Okay.
right? Because the idea is just this little narrative here.
Mhm.
Okay, you want to take a screen grab of that?
Yes. Screenshot. Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, so refresh. Check if there's anything else. Those are all zeros. Okay, so what I had done last week was laid out these little pieces of pixie dust coming in towards my left orb. And there's a bunch of them. And then right here is where I did the explosion. And I just explained this a moment ago, is I used gray, white, oops, hold on a second. I'm on the wrong frame. Gray, white, gray, white, and then we return to the black background that is rendered here. And so in render, we start from a very black background with the two little positive and negative electrodes. Once again, the magic is coming in here. And then we hit, the background changes to gray. So here it was black, and then it goes gray, white, and then we return to black again while all this other stuff is happening. So the first thing that happens is there's a bunch of little spikes that come off. And you can, just in this area right here, the spikes blast out And then this one is the oval. So you can't really see this one, but it's small right there. And then it gets bigger and then just breaks apart and goes off the screen. The other thing that happens is this pulse goes most of the way towards the other electrode. And then it got that little sine wave in there. So there's an upper, it's a compound curve. There's a outside, two outside curves to each one, and it just pulses back and forth on ones. And I'm just looking at this pink part right here. That's all it's doing. All right, and then I added this oval blast right here is this oval coming off of the other one. So this pulse happens and that goes out. And then this one is where the oval moves towards the other electrode. I'm not quite sure if this reads. I might make it brighter. And again, if you just use as many colors over here, that's just a really easy fix. If you haven't done that, you could just go back to your paint tool and say paint, repaint, and just paint those little ovals moving. I also think that they're kind of small. And that one of the things I might do here is make them bigger, because I think that at speed it gets missing. All right, and then I have the spikes on the right. So these are a little bit more interesting. What I was looking at was a reference from the magical transition that the blue fairy uses on Pinocchio in Pinocchio. And I wanted it to be kind of the main point of this whole thing happening, where the energy gets transferred to this electrode, and then the electrode becomes an orb. So I have this energy happening here, and it's all going outwards, and then at speed it kind of looks like this. Oh, hold on, I'm in the render mode, sorry. All right, so you see what I'm looking at there? And I played this a couple of times for you. Let me play it one more time. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to just kind of focus on this layout here. And I'm going to do one more thing. So just pause for 30 seconds. Hold on a second. Okay, my intent here is to, and my narrative as well, was to do a couple of things. I was looking at that example that we had on Pinterest 3 weeks ago, and I like the idea of this being a plasma blast. Remember that one of the first things I did was set up this little oscillation here of the pulse. So when the pulse is happening, it's really, this wave has a node on it, which is right there. That's the upper tangent. And then there's another tangent right here and another one. And I hand drew this. So it's a little wobbly, but at speed, those little nodes move very quickly to the right. So they just keep moving. And they're not, there's not a lot of differential between the center line of the blast and the exterior portion of it. When this happens out here, I thought it would be really fun. Like I said, the little Pinocchio effect out here with the right spikes. And then what I thought would be kind of cool is that with these pulses here, let me see where I put this. I think it's left spikes. So when these spikes come out from the center here, they emanate from the center, and then right here they explode. So each one of those little spikes explodes and then turns to pixie dust. See what's happening? So there's a lot of stuff happening just on both the right and the left side here, even to the point where it's absolutely wrong cinematically, because there's so much happening, you can't possibly see all of it at the same time. Let me turn my layout off and play it one more time. You have to kind of watch it twice in order to see everything happening. But my intent was just a lot of frenetic energy. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, hey, I like this little, these little magical bits coming in here. So what I'm going to do is, and I need to find that color. So I'm going to eyedropper this color, and I am looking at particles. So I'm calling those particles. So with my brush on drawing number 3, and it doesn't matter where you are in the middle of this drawing, but I always try to keep it so that I'm on the first frame of this position, just looking at the distribution of these guys. And I'm just going to do one at a time. So I think that I'd like another pulse coming right there. I'm going to turn my onion skin on, and I'm just going to follow this one. So now that everything is established in keys here, I'm going to go backwards a frame, and there's my next one. That's the one I'm drawing right now. So now with my G key, I'm just going to have it go towards the center of this orb. And it's already at the center. So now I'm going to go to this frame and do another one. So with my distribution, I can see the red is what I'm looking at. So maybe I want one to come in from right here. And now I'm going to just do the G key to go forwards in time. And I'm going to go forwards and forwards in time, and then right to the orb. Now I'm going to do this frame. And I think I want one coming from right here. So I'm going to come from off screen. This one's going to be a little bigger. This is going to move a little slower. I'm using the same kind of distance here. And this one, I see that if I go to this frame right here, it'll automatically add a new keyframe right here. And I'm going to add 2 more frames for that just to keep it on 3s. Now I'm going to go to this one. So I think that I want another little orb, but this one I'm going to do 2 little pieces of magic at the same time. And one's moving a little faster than the other. And I'm looking at my timeline. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to go to this one. I'm looking at the red. That's where I'm at right now. So maybe I want one coming in from right here. This will be a circle. And it's going to move a little faster. And that one's already there. All right, so you kind of see what I'm doing here about just going backwards and forwards and drawing one little piece of magic coming in at a time. So let me just go backwards with my F key, and I'm going to go forwards with the G key. And I'm going to turn the onion skin off, because I think that what I was looking at when I was previewing this last night is there's some stuff missing right here. It's looking okay. So once again, I'm just gonna see what and remember, I started doing this on 1s, and then I put this on 2s, and then I put this on 3s. And when I got this timing set, I moved all of these components down the timeline. So I've got a mix of 3s and 2s and 1s. This is my flash. It's my white and black flash. This is the pulse. That's working okay. This is the oval here. That's moving outwards, which breaks apart and becomes a little ripple, which is fine. That's done. And then this is these spikes. And the left spikes are moving outwards. And then they become pixie dust. And I'm looking at the distribution. I'm looking at kind of making things random, just adding a couple other pieces of magic randomly. And that was my last frame. So now I transfer everything over to the right side, and the purple right spikes go outwards. And this is the Pinocchio effect here. And I think I like that just the way it is. That's the end of that. This is the oval blast here. And for this one, I think that I'm going to try just making this bigger and repositioning it along the center line. And then the next one, making it bigger. I'm hitting the shift key to constrain proportions. And again, moving it so the center line is on the center of there. And then going to the next frame. And I'm going to just go ahead and make this one bigger as well. Center line. And saving this and seeing what we've got. Okay, so I think I like what I've got going. I also think that the reason that I have all these extra frames here at the end is because what I would like to do is have what happens is that the transfer of energy has caused this little electrode to become an orb. And so now, oops, sorry. So now, and you can kind of see that I kind of made a variation from it from what my little thumbnail was 2 weeks ago, is that it would animate along this track, this path. And I ended it right here because maybe it just goes away. It disappears off into infinity, something like that. And I thought this was interesting for you all to use, is that you have a whole bunch of things happening. You have explosions, you have the white, black frame, white, black, white frame technique of flashing. You have the plasma, you have magic happening on both sides of this, and the slight narrative of a electrode becoming an orb, which is now moving on its own pathway. And that's the next step. So that's what all these frames here are for. For any of these, I would come to this frame maybe right here, turn my layout off, render it, take a look at maybe this one. Yeah, any of these. And just kind of taking a look at what I've got in terms of what it would render out like. And I kind of like this, but I think that I'd like some glow. And what I might do is just what I suggested to you all. And the danger would be is that if I took this pulse and I shift selected it and I copied it and I right clicked and said copy cells from the timeline, and then I went down to a brand new layer and I pasted them in the timeline, you've got to be really careful, because my intent would be is to put a glow on this, but also keep the really hot purple line and just put a glow on the copy. But if I'm not careful, I would end up with all of these glows being in the library, and that for what I do to one layer, it's going to end up happening to the same layer above it or below it. And so because there's only a few of these, I might just copy and paste each one of these elements just using my main select tool, copy, and then paste in an empty layer right below it. And then I can do whatever I want. I can put like a diffuse, a transparency, a blur, a glow. I can put whatever nodes on this layer that I want. And I could do the same thing with the right blast. So as these guys are coming out here, there's only a few of them. And if I wanted this little purple, this little light purple color to be the hot center, then I would copy and paste each one of these on a new layer underneath it. And then on the new layer, give it a transparency or a glow or a blur so that it has like, it has a hot center and then a glow behind it. You could do the exact same thing for the lightning. In fact, I was thinking that I was going to put some sort of lightning happening here, but it might be overdoing it a little bit. That was my intent. That's what I'm planning on doing for this little demo here. And it's not a lot of work. You can see that there's not a lot of frames in here. It's just kind of like wanting to make sure that it's looking like I did it correctly. Something's just catching my eye here. Oh, I see what I've done. One of the things that I had working was that this oval pulse, this oval blast here was on ones as well, but I put it on twos. So when I'm playing it this time, just kind of watch that little oval. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in render mode. Because I want to be able to see that thing. So I put it on twos so that you could see it a little better. All right, so that I'm going to continue working on this, and hopefully I'll have it done for you next week. Remember that when I did my background, that I painted those little spheres with a color, oops, sorry, with a color that had a radial gradient, and the radial gradient from a hot green to a more of a olive color. And then with the gradient editing tool that is located underneath the white arrow, right selection arrow, is that I touched it on the stage. I'm on the background layer. Hold on a second. It should be right there. I don't know why it's not letting me pick it. Very strange. I don't know why it won't let me select it. Oh, because I put it on the background is just the color. I apologize. So with the graded editing tool, I put the center towards each other. I don't think that it was something that I wanted to do, to have these hot centers pulsing, you know, thinking about it going, I could spend all day doing that and you'd never see it. The idea would be is that I want a plasma blast, and I want this electrode to become an orb. So having said that, I thought that I had a couple of things queued. Oh, I just did like a glass breaking search. And remember that when you were all doing your glass breaking, remember I did a quick little demo on it for you, just about starting out with a pane of glass or whatever it is, and then having a background behind it so that when you break it and the glass falls, that it actually reveals something behind it. That helps you get the glass to read. But and I think I might have mentioned this. Let me reiterate that one point is that there are tons of different kinds of glass. There are tumblers, there's drinking glasses, there's safety glass, which breaks apart like this. You know, it's called tempered glass. So glass can break into tons of different shapes, tons and tons of different shapes. So this is a little electrical lightning thing that's on the outside of that plasma blast. I don't know. I think that my demo is getting a little busy. I like this thing right here. I haven't seen this before. And remember that one of the principal reasons why this class even exists is because effects like this exist where the artist has done them in Unity, and they've let all their little sliders determine what the effect actually looks like. And our executive director wanted more of a traditional 2D hands-on approach to what those shapes actually look like. You know, I can see here that I like those little stars. I like these little stars right here. I might go and put those in there. And I like the little sparks. I might put stars and sparks on that one. There's more of an electrical firestorm. You know, just kind of thinking it would be really hard to have this as an orb and have that be moving along an arc. That might be a lot of work. And that's what Unity is good for, is getting things to move. And here, we talked just about this module here. If you look at this module, it says that they want breaking rock. But I don't think that it's necessary for us to do anything else except for looking at the outline and saying, oh, they wanted shattering glass and rock. And all I have to do is show this to you and say, if you wanted to do breaking rock, it's pretty much just like breaking glass. The shapes are going to be a little different. Breaking rock might move a little slower. It's really just the same thing of paying attention to what your timing is, what the shapes of things are like. And my ending note for you today is over the next week, when you come back into next week, have as much along done with your final as possible, paying attention to 3 different things. And I'm just going to write these right here. So the 3 things that I want you to pay attention to are being bold. And I'm drawing the word bold in bold. And that means creative. Everything that you know as an artist. So be bold, be brave. You know, take a chance with your effect. If it doesn't work, that's okay. You know, we have time, we can still fix it. Pay attention to your colors. Look at your color wheel, use complementary colors. I hate complementary colors. Analogous colors are cool. Tertiary colors are good. And then remember style. And I think that with the last point here, I thought that I had put something in my effects board that kind of, oh yeah, this is actually, yeah, this is my the effects board, which you can all see, which is that I have a big pet peeve about drawing trees. I hate it when my students draw a giant broccoli instead of trees, but I love the stylization on that little drawing right there. It's actually really cool. And the stylization of these flames that says fire pattern from Japan, and another one here. And you know, these clouds would be great if you're going to just draw them once and then track them like I showed you how to do, because you're not going to want to animate these clouds undulating and moving around. You are not going to want to animate this water splashing. It will take you 2 months to animate waves that look like this. It would be really cool, but the idea of style is up at the top. Look at the stylization on this smoke right here is really cool. This is a pretty realistic looking fire. This smoke has a little bit of style going on behind it. These little vapor trails have a really cool style. So the points there for next week are get as far along with your final as you can, being bold and paying attention to what your colors will look like and what kind of style you're using. I champion the idea of using and experimenting with as much style as you possibly can. The final note would be is that there's still time to tweak your volcano and your tornado. So if you need to, you can always go back in there too. We meet 3 more times, actually. We meet 3 more times on the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. So you do have time to tweak all of that for your volcano, your tornado, and your final piece. So that's the whole point. All right, do I have any questions off the gallery floor? Anything? Nothing? Matt? Okay, I'll let you guys go 10 minutes early. We will see you next week.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes,
Sebastian.
question.
Do we have to make the broken glass?
No. It's so simple. It's easy to do. It's one of the things that I de-emphasize in the class. If you don't have a place for it, I'm not going to go crazy if you don't have glass. But I do want the fire, the smoke, all of that working great. The explosions, the magic, and I want you exploring how artistic you can be with all of your pieces that you're doing. Please be creative and as artistic as you can be. And sometimes that means doing a lot of reference, researching one artist and another, and not just finding one thing and settling on it. All right, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.